Ining? Mahulog ka?
Right, we've entered the Abbott's precinct, or the Abbott's quarters. Now the Abbott's in charge here. He's elected by the monks. Once he's elected, he can, if he wants to, stay for life. So the monks have to elect somebody they trust, who's going to look after their interests. And it's often the number two, the prior, that becomes the next abbot, because he's already shown he's capable of looking after the place. So in that sense it's all very modern, much like an employment place today might be. So the abbot has a very fine house which is just over here, two-storey dwelling, very fancy. This is where he entertains some of the important guests, the visitors to the abbey. And he's got a nice garden which is in this area, and the garden looks over towards his kitchen, which is this building here, built in the 1300s, so we'll go in there in a minute. But he also had a big feasting hall. So on the ground here was a huge building, which was a two-storey building, a feasting hall where the abbot could entertain. Now the last abbot here, a man called Richard Whiting, he had a banquet in that feasting hall for 500 people, and in his journal he describes them as persons of fashion. So he's deliberately inviting the A-listers of the Tudor period. Now, we also know that there were a number of royal visits here. We had King Edward I, as I told you when we were up at Arthur's tomb. We also had a visit from King Edward III and his wife Queen Philippa. And then towards the end of the Abbey's history, a visit from King Henry VII. Now these visits would have cost the Abbey an absolute fortune. We know that on one of these visits it cost the Abbot about £250,000 in today's money to entertain the King and his entourage for a few days. So you wouldn't want too many royal visits.
Exactly.
Now, remember I said this was the wealthiest abbey in the land, so these were almost like the prestige head offices. It's like the equivalent of the big glass towers today in our cities. The abbot was so important he was made a lord, so he would often be away on business in London, where he was sat in the House of Lords, which was part of the government, of course. So all these things just showing how rich and important Glastonbury was. So let's head down into the kitchen and I'll tell you a little bit more about that building.